Good Monday morning, my beautiful intuitive butterflies. I hope everyone's doing well, and I hope that everyone's had a beautiful weekend. Let's dig in this morning and let's find out what the cards have in store for our guidance this week. This week, we'll be looking both at our positive guidance as well as the shadow guidance, what to kind of watch out for this week. I've had a couple of people say to me, how do you become more intuitive? What can you do to become more intuitive? And I answer people, watch for the little things, watch for synchronicities. So just to give you an example, this morning I got up and for whatever reason, I ended up putting on a blue shirt, a blue skirt, and for probably about a year, I've worn nothing but purple eyeliner. It's my favorite. I love purple eyeliner. And this morning, in my rush to get ready, I grabbed an eyeliner out of my kit, put it on, and realized that the eyeliner I was putting on was blue. What are the chances? What does blue even represent? Blue represents the throat chakra, the chakra that's right around in this area. It represents communication. And so I'm looking at this that, you know what? My theme for this week is communication. I need to pay attention to my communication. Am I speaking clearly and concisely? Am I speaking in a way that the people around me are going to be able to understand me? Or am I being a little shadowy so that the people around me might have to try and fill in the blanks? And that's when misunderstandings happen. So that, to me, all of this blue that came out on a Monday morning, to me, is an indication that that's one of the things I really need to pay attention to this week. The other thing that happened is I have two pendulums that I work with on a regular basis. And this morning, when I reached for my pendulums, the pendulum that came out was the blue one. Okay, so there's four things. This is my other pendulum, just so that you guys can see. I have two pendulums. One of them is a crystal, and the other one is blue. And the one that came out this morning was the blue one. So again, I've got all this blue coming out. So this is a representation to me. Pay attention to communication. Okay. All right, let's get started. Let's light a candle. Let's call in the angels, the ancestors, the animals, the divine creator of all that is, and Mother Earth. I'm going to light some smudge, cleanse and clear. We're going to cleanse and clear the cards we're going to use today, cleanse and clear ourselves. I offer it to each of you as we call in the four directions as well. We call in the north, the south, the east, and the west. And of course, we call in spirit. All right. And around we go. Thank you. Okay, let's move this off to the side as we're cleansed and cleared and ready to go. All right, so today we are going to be using Kyle Gray's Angels and Ancestor Oracle cards. And you'll notice that I call in 5 elements, and I also call in 5 elementals, 5 spirits each time that I work. And the 5 spirits or elementals that I call in, everyone has different names for them. The 5 that I call in is the divine creator. Some people choose to call that God, goddess, universe. I call in Mother Earth, of course, because Mother Earth supports all of us. We all need to be kind and recognize and acknowledge her. I call in the angels, the ancestors, and the animals, okay, the 3 A's. So the fact that Kyle Gray has created a deck called Angels and Ancestors, it resonates, it works. All right, so Tap in, take a couple of deep breaths, and decide whether you want pile number 1, pile number 2, or pile number 3 this week. Which pile is going to best represent and guide you in what you need to know and recognize this week? So, Angels and Ancestors deck, please separate yourself into 3 piles for guidance for all of the intuitive butterflies this week. All right, we've got a pretty good mix going on here, just the way the cards are coming out. Yeah, they're deciding, they're almost broken into 3 themselves at this point. 1, 2, and 3. Okay, intuitive butterflies. Those of you who chose pile number 1. Your theme for this week is Hunter. Track down your fears and your desires. The fascinating thing about this card is you'll notice that one of the themes that is in this card is deer. Okay, so you've got up here on the staff, you've got, well, I guess that's more of a ram, but there's antlers involved. And then the headdress that the character is wearing also has antlers. Okay. What this means is that in order to track down your fears and your desires this week, you need to tap into that higher power. These are acting as antennae. These are acting as antenna in order to connect this person and connect all of you to your most primal instincts. When this one comes up, hunters have to be in touch with their primal instincts in order to be able to catch an animal that is still far more in touch with its primal instincts than we are as modern humans. So this week, for those of you who picked pile number 1, you're being called to really, really get in touch with what your fears are and what your desires are. And when we see a card that involves fears, it's a call for us to shed light on those fears, right? Fears often come from shadows. What happens when we shine light on shadows? When we shine light on shadows, shadows disappear. And it's the same with our fears. Have you ever noticed that if you are absolutely terrified of doing something, once you actually do it, it's not that bad anymore? So take, for example, just in my own personal life, I am afraid of heights. I don't like heights. So what did I decide to do? For my 50th birthday, I went ziplining through the jungles in Thailand. I was absolutely terrified. I think it was 13 zip lines, 13 lines that we rode that day. And I think that I had my eyes closed and screamed for the first 3 of them. I was absolutely terrified. But you know what? By the time I did the 13th line, I had my eyes wide open, and instead of screaming in absolute terror, I was whooping it up because the fear was gone, because I'd faced my fear. So those of you who had pile number 1 this week, pay attention to your fears and your desires. Really, really get in touch with those fears. And when you do get in touch with those fears, explore them. Find out why that fear is there. Is that fear there because of a prior belief that you have? Or is that fear there because of a prior belief because someone else planted a seed and said, oh my God, that's scary? Because oftentimes our fears come from outside of us. It comes from someone else's opinion. Okay, so that's for pile number 1. Now the shadow for pile number 1 will be the bottom card. Your bottom card is your fire guardian, ignite your passions. This card in relation to this card, okay? This card being your shadow, normally this card would be a call to action. It's a fire card. But when it falls into the shadow position, when it falls into the position underneath the deck, it's a call to watch out for your passions. They might be a little bit too fiery this week. Your communication with others might be a little bit too fiery. You know, when you're passionate about something, you get all wound up and you really, really want to talk about what's going on. And that can actually sometimes be offensive to others. If your intention this week is to track down your fears and your desires and face them and communicate them, again, I'm going to go back into communication, seeing as I'm wearing all blue today. If your intention is to track down your fears and desires and communicate about them, watch your communication that it doesn't get so fiery, that you don't get so passionate about it, that you actually become offensive to other people. Okay? There's nothing wrong with being passionate, but this card is a card of caution this week. Okay, so I caution you in your passions this week. All right, so that is for card pile number 1. Those of you that picked pile number 2, here we go. Pile number 2. Okay, you got the Oracle this week. Wait for important information. Wait for important information. Okay. So, unlike pile number 1, pile number 2, you're being called to actually kind of step back, sit back on your laurels, I guess, and wait for that important information to come in. That doesn't mean don't continue to take some kinds of action this week, but it means that you don't have to be quite so fiery or passionate about what you want to do. It means that you need to take some time to step back and pay attention to the signs. You know, the same way that today I'm paying attention to all of the blue that's going on, and I'm recognizing that that's a sign for me. The Oracle waiting for important information. Oracles, psychics, tarot readers, intuitives, whatever name you want to put on people who do this type of work that I'm doing, and who I suspect a lot of you want to do as well, cannot get the information when there's a lot of chatter going on up here. You need to actually sit back from time to time, and you need to wait for that information to come. And it's not always going to come in right away. So this card for pile number 2 is a call to step back, but it's also a reminder that you have the answers within you. The Oracle, if you look at the Oracle of Delphi, for example, she's probably the most famous. I'm saying she, there was numerous she's at Delphi at the time, but we won't get into that right now. But those oracles didn't have a lot of extra distractions. In order to be able to do the work that they did, they had to be isolated. They actually lived a very isolated life, right? And that was the way that they were able to get in touch. They were waiting for that important information to come into them. So yeah, for pile number 2, I mean, I can't add a whole lot more to that other than, you know, take the time this week, whether that looks like going and swimming a few lengths, if that's your thing, going out for a run, taking a walk in a park, for that matter, taking a blanket to the park and just lying down and paying attention to the clouds that are up in the sky and the shapes that are coming in. Whether it means just sitting down and closing your eyes in silent meditation, whether it means putting on a song that's very repetitive so that you get out of the chatter that's in your mind. All of these are wonderful suggestions that will open you to waiting for that important information. I really want to say that for those of you that picked pile number 2, you have been waiting for an answer. You've been waiting for an answer for some time. And that answer will come, but what this card is telling you is the answer is not going to come while you're still dealing with the chatter. So slow down a little bit and wait for that information. Your shadow this week is the wolf. Oh, this card works perfectly with this card. And the reason is this card is calling you to slow down, pay attention to your intuitive side. This card is asking you to wait for important information. Your shadow side this week is the winter. Take care of your needs. Okay, this is an indication that for those of you that chose pile number 2, you're not taking care of your needs because this was in the shadow side. This is the side that indicates it's time for you to take that quiet, to step back a little bit. This is telling you that the universe has a message for you. There's something the universe wants to tell you right now. And this card is telling you, you need to take that time. Take care of your needs. The other thing that's coming up for me intuitively about this card, a wolf is kind of like a dog. And one of the things a dog does is when a dog is injured, it goes away, it isolates itself and it licks its wounds. I don't know why that's coming up for me, but I feel that that's a message that those of you who picked pile number 2 needs to hear. That you need to hear that you need to maybe sit back and lick your wounds. Lick your wounds, care for your wounds, whether those wounds be physical, which I'm not leaning towards. I think those wounds are more emotional and psychological. Sit back, lick those emotional and psychological wounds, care for yourself, because I sense that you have not been doing this work. And because you have not been doing this work, this important information does not have the opportunity to come in right now. So as you do this work, then this information that you are meant to have will come forward. Okay, so that is pile number 2. Let's move on to pile number 3. Those intuitive butterflies who picked pile number 3, stand your ground, the mountains. Okay. So this card has a number of different messages. One is stand as a mountain, right? Mountains are pretty much immovable. It's not like we can just go in and shove them out of the way. So this card is about standing your ground. But this card is also a reminder, as above, so below, right? There's a lot more going on below the surface in a mountain. You know, if you think about a mountain like an iceberg bobs along in the water, but what you see outside of the water is really less than half of the iceberg, because if what was underneath the water was smaller, the iceberg would just tip over. And mountains are similar. Mountains are tied into Mother Earth. And so what's going on up here, there is also stuff going on down here. So this card for you for pile number 3 is to stand your ground this week as you are reminded that what you can see isn't all that's going on. There's more to the story. So as you stand in your ground, as you stand in your power, what's going on below the surface is often revealed to you. Right? If you're just waffling along through life, not paying attention to very much, just go with the flow all of the time, then you may not realize that there's stuff going on below. There's stuff going on behind the scenes. Okay. The other message that's coming up for me for pile number 3 for the mountain is that one of the things that people want to do when they see a mountain is climb it. And we all know that climbing a mountain isn't the easiest task. It's something that can be done if you are well prepared. So I'm going to go out on a limb here and add that message in for those of you who picked pile number 3 this week, that part of your work and your message this week is not only to stand your ground, but as you are standing your ground this week, also get into that prep mode. Prepare for tomorrow, whatever that looks like for you. Because, like I said, there's things going on behind the scenes that you might not be aware of in your life. Now, what's going on behind the scenes doesn't have to be nefarious. Perhaps what's going on behind the scenes is actually really positive. Perhaps your boss, for example, has recognized all of the work that you've been putting in, while your friend, I use that term loosely, and coworker who sits next to you has been receiving all the accolades. And you've been sitting there going, right? Perhaps what's been going on behind the scenes is that your boss has actually recognized that this person is a poser and you're actually doing the work, right? So stand your ground, stand in your power, be that mountain. Same if an argument of some kind comes up, stand your ground, right? Sit in your truth. Because when you sit in your truth, oftentimes what other people are seeing is that your truth is just this little piece of the mountain that's sticking out from the top. They don't realize how heavily invested you are in it, because that's below the surface. Okay. All right. What is your shadow this week for pile number 3? Shadow this week, we have the magic guardian. Unlock the magic within. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So remember, I've gone back to this several times, that the mountain has a hidden aspect to itself, right? It's got something going on below the surface. And for you, my intuitive butterflies who picked number 3, your shadow this week is unlock the magic within. It's an indication that what you are showing to the world when you're standing your ground is just this teeny little top of the mountain, right? So that people aren't seeing the magic that's happening all around the entire mountain, right? Mountains are attached to the Mother Earth energy, and magic is attached to the ethereal realm. And although you're being called to stand in your power this week, to stand your ground, what you're being shown is that you're perhaps not using all of the magic that's available to you. You're perhaps not using all of the energies that are available to you. You'll notice that there's several representations on this card of magic, including an angel here. We've got smoke, which often represents cleansing, clearing, but also can represent oracles. We know that the oracles at Delphi and so on, there was a lot of steam coming out of the earth. We don't have all the details, but there was steam and smoke coming out. We know that when the indigenous people of North America, and I believe around the world, go into ceremony, they use smoke as a ritual in order to create that magic, that magical sense. You'll notice up above here, she's got the 8th chakra open. Okay, so this card for you, pile number 3, those of you who picked pile number 3, this is your shadow this week. This is a reminder that this is what you've been suppressing. This is what you've been keeping down, your magic. Okay, so this week for pile number 3, remember to stand your ground while at the same time allow your magic to come out. Okay, so that's it for this week. I look forward to seeing all of you next week. Once again, I hope that the cards resonated beautifully with you. I know that the pile that I picked resonated with me. That, yeah. My pile this week, if I'm being honest, was pile number 1, where I really need to concentrate on tracking down my fears and desires while at the same time maybe not being quite so fiery in my communication. So thank you, my beautiful intuitive butterflies. Thank you for joining me here this morning on a Monday morning. And I look forward to seeing all of you. Just a reminder that this week I will be in Texas. I'm traveling up to San Antonio, Texas. And on Saturday afternoon, from 2 until 4 o'clock, I will be hosting a book signing for the book that I released last year called Memoirs of a Single Traveling Mom. And I will be signing my book, selling my book at a discounted rate. It's being hosted at Dead Tree Books in San Antonio, Texas. So if you are in the area, even if you're as far out as Austin or Waco, it's just a short drive to San Antonio. So come on out, meet me in person. I would love to meet all of you. Thank you so much for joining me.